Welcome, everyone, to our fourth episode of Wavecast. I'm Andy here with Comfort and Scott over at the launch at the Marine Institute. And so we're here today to talk about SmartAtlantic and SmartBay. Thank you all so much for being on the podcast today. What is it that y'all do here at the Marine Institute and / the launch?
List of stuff, actually. Like a lot of small teams, everyone has to kind of handle multiple roles. So Comfort and I work with the Marine Institute for its SmartAtlantic program, but we also work with CEUS, the Canadian Integrated Ocean Observation System. All of that revolves around ocean data and ocean data management. So that is our primary, role, but we do data integration. Comfort's working on initiatives with artificial intelligence, like server management and web development and all kinds of stuff to kind of help keep the whole show rolling.
Occasionally we do like dashboards and stuff like that to product for data and products based on like data we have.
Yeah, turning the data into information, visualizing what's there. It's one thing to look at a table of numbers, but then to see the graphs, it's like, oh, that big spike looked like could be a problem or something interesting.
Sure.
During storms, that gets pretty pronounced. So the buoys are out there, like they're always moving, and then you see a storm coming, you can see the wave heights just really spike, and same with the winds and all that kind of fun stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that intro. So to kind of get into why we're here, for those of us that are unfamiliar, what is SmartAtlantic and what do we as the Marine Institute have to do with that?
So SmartAtlantic grew out of the SmartBay project, which started back in 2006. So this is our 20th anniversary.
Happy birthday.
Rolling up. Thank you. Started with a single buoy in the mouth of Placentia Bay, near the south part there. Largely, Placentia Bay, the Port Placentia Bay is very busy. There's a huge amount of traffic there. And the program initially started as kind of a situational awareness and safety measure, so that we could bring real-time data of what the meteorological and oceanographic activity in that part of the bay was, so that to help fishers and shippers understand what the activity was. It's a safety thing. So because there was a study that kind of predicted that due to the traffic, Placentia Bay had a very high probability of a next major marine accident. So having better information of what the sea conditions and such were helps ship captains and such make better choices and safer choices. So hence the tagline of SmartBay and SmartAtlantic is better information, better decisions.
Sure.
So that's how that started. And we grew from one buoy to several. We've deployed them in different parts of the island. Then we partnered with IOR in Nova Scotia, which later became Cove. So SmartAtlantic is kind of what grew out of that, which was technically the SmartAtlantic Alliance. So yes, very fancy. But like we strive to work with other groups to kind of make everything happen. So much of this works because of relationships, and you need to, the tech and the data is one thing, but you need buy-in from the populace and from people who are going to be using that. And so Cove handles stations and buoys in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. And so they are affiliated with us. We do the data management part of it. All the data comes back here, but they're the ones helping us to maintain that infrastructure. Like, we're in Newfoundland. It's going to be hard for us to head out to Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and handle things there. So, we work with Cove, and they in turn work with partners in their regions. We work with Coast Guard and Environment Canada and things like this, and Department of Fisheries and Oceans. And again, relationships, it's how it all kind of works.
Totally. Wow. That's really awesome. So we've said happy birthday to SmartBay, 20 years. And so we've talked a little bit about like the geographical expansion of it from around here in Placentia Bay to down to New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. How else has it changed from its establishment until now?
Well, we have partnerships with Ocean Networks Canada, based out in British Columbia. So we're a coast to coast thing.
Okay.
And so part of that partnership is relaying the data that we get back to ONC. They do a lot of data integration and making data available, and data management and quality. They do a lot of stuff. And that led to a extended partnership here. So in Holyrood Bay, the bay behind you,
Right.
is a subsea observatory that it's like 85 meters down.
Oh my gosh.
So it's below the level where sunlight penetrates.
Whoa.
So there's a camera amongst a bunch of other instrumentation on that observatory. And the camera, technically it's always recording and broadcasting, but there's a set of fairly powerful light lamps down there that turn on once an hour for 5 minutes and record what's happening down the seafloor. And that data is relayed back to ONC, but we also make it available via the website so folks can kind of see what's happening below the bay. And sometimes it's just nothing. You're just watching like the currents and whatever's blowing around. And other times there'll be fish checking stuff out, or crabs will be dancing around or fighting. Or there's some samples there where like a shark has been noticed. There was a harp seal that kind of swam around the whole thing. You never know what's going to show up. There's a bunch of sea cucumbers, and you'll see them kind of like flat to the ground, and then we'll check back a few hours later, and then they stuck up. And the light sometimes draw other activity, which is why it can't be on all the time. Sunlight doesn't naturally penetrate there, so you are disrupting the environment when you turn it on. So it's you limit that to. But there's also like a hydrophone that's on there. So like an underwater microphone that's always recording sounds. We have years of audio there now, and similar for video. There's other instruments down there as well, but it's meant to be an expandable platform to do other work with. So there's other sensors that could be put on there. We can't take it up a lot, but it is swamped out. Like taken up for servicing on a regular basis to maintain the equipment. So that's been a big one. We are in contact with the provincial government. They have a number of climate stations and that are kind of around the coast and such like this. So I've been working with them to help try to bring some of that in. There was a few stations that DFO had running through another program, and the person who was running that program at the time reached out. It's like, I have these stations. I'm saving the data. Do you want it? Yes. Give. So we rigged that up. So and that data and all historical stuff is now publicly available. Those stations are now under being maintained by DFO at NAFC. But then we're helping to relay the data and making all that available for folks. Robert Way of the Northern Environmental Geoscience Lab, if I had that right. Apologies, Robert, if I don't. Is actually Robert's from Labrador, but he works at Queen's University, but has a network of climate stations in Labrador. And some of them are near the coast, others aren't. But they reached out and said, the provincial government makes this data publicly available, and that's great. It's not the way they're displaying it is a very technical, and it's not very intuitive for folks. And one of the things with Smart Bay and SmartAtlantic, one of its kind of guiding principles is that it's not meant to be this technical, very jargony thing. It's meant to try to present that information in a very, very intuitive way, so that if you're looking to head out the bay on your boat and you need to know what the conditions are like, you can look that up and see, like, okay, the waves are fairly calm, and whether you're used to looking at that information in feet or meters or whatever, we're not just presenting it in units that folks don't understand. It's meant to be more public engagement. Yes, you can use the data for scientific purposes or research and everything else like this, but the front end of it, that's the business end for the public, is meant to be intuitive and inviting in that way. And that was the kind of pitch that Robert had, was like, folks like, the way the information presented here, can we have our stuff there? Sure. Come on in. And so that's why there's a bunch of stations in Labrador. They're on land, even though we're primarily focused on the ocean. But folks in the community found it really useful. And I found out, was it last year, that apparently those stations are closer than some of the official, say, Environment Canada stations. They're closer to home for these folks. And so to some degree, they're making calls sometimes when they close school based on the data from this. So we're inadvertently helping to benefit the community in that, sense.
Oh, that's awesome.
There was, and so like there's been things kind of that nature. Going back to the video data that's coming from the observatory, like 5 minutes of video every hour for several years stacks up to be a lot.
Yeah,
So we've had some students employed previously to help us kind of go through that data. But even with tools, it's a tedious task.
Sure.
You're watching through the video to see what's happening. It's like, okay, that's a fish. What kind of fish is it? How do you identify it? And what other things are there? Because like you have other things that are on seabed floor that might be very well camouflaged, hard to pick out. There's lots of different species and variety, and it's not always clear what's what. Some of them, it turns out, we found out you can't just identify visually. So there's a limit to how specific you can get. But we started going down the road of looking at the potential for using artificial intelligence to help do the heavy lifting on that, to scan through, to find events and occurrences of interest, and then that short list, and to do some initial guesswork classification, but to have it then verified by humans. And so from that, we could kind of build data. Comfort's largely been leading the effort on that, and you can speak to the intricacies of that far more than I can.
Yeah, the project is mostly focused on species identification, but not like directly down to species, because like we said, like Scott said earlier, it's easy to identify certain species, but for some species, it's harder to identify, and so the idea is just to initially start with trying to do preliminary annotations that somebody can go over. So instead of having like an entire 5-minute footage, right? What the model does. And so we're working currently, started a project with DeepSense in collaboration with CIFR. We started that project and we're working with a student. And so the idea is to pass whatever video we have. It could be our video, because we've been training the model with Hollywood data, but also data from the MCA project. And so we've been training the model with a lot of data from that. So the idea is you pass the video through the model. It helps you predict certain species. So right now we are scoped to like 9 species. So it helps you predict if those species are there. But the idea is also for it to also identify if it can't identify it. There's a species you can identify it as fish, but it can't tell you what exactly it is because it's not yet trained. So that's also something we're working on. And so then you have someone go in and say, okay, now we have just, maybe 10 pictures, 10 predictions, instead of having to watch like 5-minute videos. And so the person goes through that, confirms or denies, this is not this. And the idea is to continually, over time, train the model to be able to recognize and accurately, recognize some of these species. There's also the serious work we're doing on creating a dashboard for like a hurricane dashboard, actually. And we're putting in different sorts of data. We have data from the buoys, from SmartAtlantic buoys. We have other data from CEUS, that's the Canadian Integrated Ocean Observing System. And we're also collecting some data from the National Buoy System in US. And so combining all this stationary data with storm data, basically so that anybody could look through it during a storm and then see, okay, so what's going on in my environment? How, what does the wavelength look like? What does the wind speed look like? And all of that. So that's one of the projects we've been working on. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I think one of the things that has come up in my brain hearing y'all talk about this is, we collect all this data about environmental conditions and then, like things as far as like species that exist with that video that you collect from the undersea observatory. Um, so I'm wondering, it's one thing for just like, a fisherman who's going to go out into the bay one day and be like, okay, this is the conditions that we see for, like for right now and like predicted for the rest of the day. But how far do you think that some of the data can be applied? To think like with every day you collect more and more information. And so is there a potential with that extra data to be used to make predictions farther ahead in time based off of previous patterns that we've seen? Or do you think that the environment that we find ourselves in, being as sporadic as it is a little bit too quote unquote random to be able to do that?
No, you absolutely can. Actually, we there was a project with DeepSense that was based out of using the Herring Cove buoy, the SmartAtlantic buoy in Halifax Harbor, and it was working with, I believe, an Environment Canada buoy to help build a model to do predictions and all that stuff. But
Mm.
you absolutely can use it because we've had partnerships with, well, what was AMIC and then WSP, and it was Wood PLC in between. There was the company has changed names a number of times, but they partner with us and they would get data and they would do regionalized forecasts.
Mm.
And having that in situ information is very helpful for that end.
Mm.
And that forecasting is kind of shifted. Like we're not currently partnered with them on that, but there is other services that have grab that data and work with it. We get requests from folks in academia, from government, from industry. There's a series of folks called OMC International that's also working with the Port of Halifax.
Mm.
Using the Herring Cove buoy to use the wave data from the Herring Cove buoy and a couple of other buoys to do kind of projections about like keel clearance for boats and the type of resonance that different vessels might have with the different wave activity.
Mm.
It turns out the wrong combination of those harmonics, a ship could roll.
Sure.
So having that access to that kind of data and historical data helps to build what those profiles are, because the geography, the history of these things all kind of affect that.
Mm-hmm.
We're also in an age of climate change. We have a changing ocean. So we're like, one of the other things we're measuring is sea surface temperature.
Mm-hmm.
That changes over time. And, the oceans are warming. I wish that was fiction. I want to believe the lie. Unfortunately,
Sure.
that ain't how it is. So long running data sets help to kind of validate models and,
Mm-hmm.
to help sanity check other stations that are reading data of different areas. Like, I don't need to tell you, the ocean is an extremely dynamic environment.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening on the surface doesn't necessarily tell you what's happening below, but
Right.
having readings matters.
Mm-hmm.
And all that. And the interesting thing about data is how it can lead many lives, right? You collected it for one purpose, but it could turn out to have a whole bunch of purposes
Mm-hmm.
in this, even in the capacity that was originally collected or as part of a larger whole.
Mm-hmm.
So there's how something like, say, predictions and forecasts
Mm-hmm.
are impacted on the long term. Having that information is always valuable. Like you need to vet it and sanity check it. Devices and sensors fail over time, or things can get out of whack and need to be recalibrated. So there's, just because you can get numbers doesn't mean that the numbers are right.
Right.
But having it collected gives you something to work with.
Mm.
And, in the same way that folks, decades and maybe centuries ago were measuring what the tide heights were, seemingly then had no purpose. But now you can use it as a reference to say, well, yeah, sea level is rising in this area. Here's what it used to be, and here's what it is now.
Totally.
Right. So that those kinds of records have value going forward. It only kind of, I think, increases the amount you collect and the density you collect it can have a real impact.
Sure.
Over time. And, it's an investment, again, like in a changing world. It behooves us now to to do more monitoring, not less.
So one thing I'm really curious about is that for y'all that are on like the back end of things in Smart Atlantic, like what does your involvement look like on like the day to day?
It varies, certainly. Sometimes it's just a matter of, keeping a tab on, are the stations still reporting? Everything seem okay? Because like among the data we get back is like, meteorological data and oceanographic data and wave data, but there's also information about the health of the system. So what are the battery voltages looking like? What is the current draw on the system? There's flooding sensors to see if water gets in. It's a hostile environment. Water's going to get in at some point.
Okay.
And then, so there's a different, it's a fairly crude mechanism, but it does work to tell us, how much water is in the bay. And sometimes you get more intrusion. If something manages to find a way in, that leads to a way for more stuff getting in. And as the water level rises, saltwater and electronics notably don't have a cozy history. So you can start to see what some of those damages can be. Actually, the Herring Cove buoy is a good example of this. It's been through hell and back so far. And so, anyways, there's a lot of water in there. The batteries are, in a bit of a rough shape. It's due to be pulled. The plan was for Cove to work with Coast Guard to get it pulled before the holiday season. That couldn't happen though, because another role these things play is a safety marker. So they couldn't pull it without having a buoy to put back in place. So even though it's in bad shape and it needs to be hauled in, and it's like it's shuddering to life for a little while, it's running, it's recording, and then inevitably it crashes out and shuts down, only to shudder back to life again because solar power is to keep things kind of rolling.
Gotcha.
So it needs to be serviced, but it can't be removed until they have something put back. And you also need the weather to cooperate. And so sometimes it's just monitoring. Sometimes something goes wrong and you need to address that. So that might just be putting notices up on the website. It might be adding in new stations that we've integrated new data in. And there's several stages to that. There's initially how you get the data. And it turns out all kinds of ways. There's no one standard way you get it. Some folks can just send it to us in a nice and easy method. Some of it we reach out and pull data down from a service. Some of it comes in on email, and we have to parse the actual email message for the data and then write that to a system so it can publish the data out. And then there's then the negotiation with the provider of, how should we describe your station and where does it go, and getting into nitty gritty. Sometimes it's responding to folks because we get emails quite a lot from folks like, hey, when is the buoy coming back to our space? Can we have a buoy in our bay? What, and such like this. So there's lots of comms that way. If something goes down and we're not necessarily aware of it, or sometimes something is producing weird readings, a sensor went haywire, and now it's saying that it's like 50 degrees to air temperature outside. That's clearly wrong. Those kind of things happen. I remember a couple of years ago over Christmas, there was a technical snafu. Basically, a security certificate for the website expired on Christmas Day. So that if you tried to hit the site, it would complain that the certificate was wrong, and so that there was a security problem. And that might not be a problem, except for the fact that at the time in Placentia Bay, there was a tanker that wanted to leave port, and they didn't want to move until they knew what the wave data was like, and they couldn't see it because the website was technically unavailable. So that it's like you're on holiday trying to scramble to get things reinstated so that a tanker can leave. Like, how much does that cost to keep a tanker in port? I don't know, but it's probably expensive. And folks are like, why can't we have a buoy back? And the reality with that a lot of times is that this comes down to money. Sad but true. The ocean hates everything we put into it. Even if we're trying to take its temperature and look after it, it's still going to. Salt water is horrendous stuff that way.
Sure.
So the gear is expensive, and the toll it takes can be expensive. And it's weird. So you have these conversations with folks as like, if I had my way, I'd have buoys all encircling the island and all the coast of Labrador.
Sure.
There's reasons why some of that's not going to work out. The ice that comes down every year is going to do havoc on anything that's in the water in that way. But it's hard to keep these things in motion. Environment Canada doesn't have any buoys around Newfoundland, as far as I know. Like,
Cool.
we're the only game in town for that. They
Oh,
kind of
wow.
stop at Nova Scotia and further offshore there. So we're it in that way.
Wow.
And it's a project that, you're kind of like a lot of things, you're working to get funding to keep the lights on and make it work. A lot of times it's, seeing how you can keep things operational. So you have those conversations with folks and comes down to money. And what was really interesting is at one time I had a back and forth with a gentleman, and it was a great conversation. He suggested running like a Chase the Ace, kind of like a fundraising thing to go and fund getting a buoy put back or to help in a bay. And that might, if it has a really good go, could potentially be enough to potentially get something started. This is a long game thing, though.
Right.
Maintenance.
A lot of times people are more interested in the capital cost, and that's fine. But then the operational cost, maintaining it, make sure it leaves, however long it can leave. That's always where we have the problem.
There's aspects of this with just the logistics, right? You can't just put these things out with a dory. You need a ship that's capable of lifting this and deploying it and pulling the gear and managing all that. So we thankfully we have a great relationship with Coast Guard, and oftentimes they're there to help us because the data from this helps them. Like there is a mutual benefit in all of this, and we've done a lot of work to help cultivate a good relationship with Coast Guard, and in turn they keep us in the loop on things. Recently, the buoy that's deployed in Placentia Bay at Red Island Shoal, that's kind of what seems to be the primary point of interest, the most value for the community. That went down it's down about a week now, and it just stopped transmitting. Like, all of a sudden, nothing. And there was no indication anything was wrong. There was no flooding. The battery seemed to be in good shape. So it was a mystery. And so we reached out to the Coast Guard in Placentia Bay, like, hey, things are just stopped transmitting on our end. We've, checked everything out. There's nothing changed. Everything should be fine. The buoy's not responding. I don't know if there's a cell phone outage in the area, but if anyone has, eyes on it, could maybe someone take a picture to see if there's been any damage. And they got pictures for us. And the buoy is currently just ensconced in 8 to 10 inches of ice. So nothing's transmitting through that.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's actually riding much lower in the water. There's a picture of how it should be, and it's right at the water line. It's like, oh boy. So it's heavy.
Oh my God.
And it's one of those situations where it's like, you can't just start breaking off ice. You might damage equipment.
Right.
So we need to wait for it to thaw. And I don't know if you're looking at the thermometer lately. That doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So we're in a waiting game.
Sure.
But because we have those relationships, we can ask them, hey, do you guys have anyone to take a look at this? Here you go. And all the buoys in the bay are slammed that way. But there's not a lot of ice. But with all of the winds and really cold temperatures, I guess it just all built up. So you have things like that can happen, and you get unexpected things. So you need to keep things updated to let folks know. There's could be an initiative that comes on to we want to add new stations, and that might involve something new and novel, like the observatory. So then it's okay. So how do we display video data? That was new for how do we do that? And set all that up. And now we're working with one of our colleagues, Bethany, who's doing a project with reef balls, and they're going to be putting a camera on it to kind of be recording the reef ball is like this concrete kind of ball, almost looks kind of like a jungle gym in a bit, but to help us to give a structure for a reef to kind of grow, for sea life to kind of grow on. And so the plan is to have cameras monitoring that and how it grows and changes over time, and pair it up with like local weather information. The first one is, I think, currently in Fox Harbor in Placentia Bay. Um, but so that's something new. So at one point, we just had one video source to worry about, the observatory out the bay there behind you. Now we're potentially going to have two, if not more, because there's, once this project kind of folks started hearing about this, like, oh, can we get one in our, like, kind of like the boys, can we have one? I'm like, so now we need to plan ahead for the potential for there to be multiples of these. And so now that changes how the website's built and how you handle those things. It's not a one-off anymore.
Sure.
So there's stuff like that. There's folks that we need to change how we're getting data sometimes, because some of the systems we've had for getting data have been in place for over a decade. And, well, the nature of the internet changes over time. Some of the old methods become insecure or problems or clunky to maintain.
Sure.
And then it's like, okay, we need to migrate how we're getting stuff without losing anything, or losing as little as possible. Folks request different kinds of data. So it could be off packaging up stuff for someone, for data they're looking for potential station or collection of stations. Like, there's a data system that's publicly available that is very capable for anyone to go in and grab the data. The problem is that the interface is ugly as sin, and it's unintuitive, and it's a little hard to use. It's very, very good at what it does, but it's not meant to kind of be something that you just use typically. It's not very user friendly.
Sure.
It's meant to be behind the scenes. It's meant for machines to be talking to it more often. So the interface that's there is one of convenience, even though it's one that it's one that everyone always comments on. It's like, the interface is terrible. I know, I didn't write it, but it's widely used. Like, it is the backbone of USIUS. It is, and as such, CUSE has also adopted it because it's standards compliant. It's open source. It's interoperable with many different types of systems. It checks a lot of boxes when you want to share data effectively for scientific purposes and things like this. So,
Sure.
And it's already established. But when you go to use it, if especially your first introduction to it, you're like, "Oh, this is bad." So oftentimes we're like, "Don't worry, I got you. We'll package it up for you. What do you want?"
For sure.
So it can be stuff like that. You never know what the day is going to bring. Could be quiet, could be very busy.
The only thing I think I would want to mention is that SmartAtlantic is a community effort, right? Like, he mentioned about how the Coast Guard helped us, take pictures and all of that, right? But sometimes there are so many places where the buoys are that we can't go to, right? So having that community, that relationship with community, is what helps us keep watch over those type of things, right? Like when the one in Placentia Bay went down, the Red Iron show, we got messages, telling us if something goes down, we have messages. Oh, the data's not coming out. Oh, this is wrong, right? So sometimes we don't find out by ourselves. Sometimes it's other people that tell us, oh, something's wrong. Right.
Wow, a couple of questions that actually came up into my mind when y'all were talking about that. So in the instance of that one buoy out there with, like the 8 to 10 inches of ice, is it collecting at that same time too, or is it just that it can't transmit?
Not sure. We're going to find out. We were talking about, because it's kind of due for servicing. So we're talking about the potential for pulling it anyway. Now we might have to. ICE can do all kinds of weird things. It might be recording and just not able to transmit. So we're going to find out when and eventually if the ICE goes and it can back up to transmitting properly. We'll find out if everything's okay or if we've got problems.
I got you. Like, does it have the capability to store data if it can't transmit it for a certain amount of time?
Yes, the data is stored on a drive on the buoy. So everything that is it's grabbing is there, and my colleague Eric has got all of those on a lock and key type thing.
Nice.
So when we bring it in, it'll be good to be able to go back through the data on board to see if it stopped transmitting, at what point it stopped transmitting or collecting. So we'll have to find out from there.
Okay.
But yeah, it does have its own internal storage on that. So even if we don't get the messages, we can still recover them later, assuming they were recorded in the first place.
Gotcha. So, like, what challenges do y'all experience with SmartAtlantic?
There's all kinds of challenges.
Mm.
So you have, I talked about the financial ones,
Mhm.
so it falls into one of those things, where you can always get money, it seems, to start a new flashy project.
Mhm.
But if you need to get money to maintain something that's working, it's crickets a lot of times. So
Mhm.
it tends to be a bit of a fight, which is
Sure.
weird, because the public seem to understand its value and appreciate it.
Mhm.
If they didn't, we wouldn't be getting messages be like, why can't we have a buoy? Why
Right.
is it down? Like, the folks are on it and they understand its value.
Mhm.
So there's that aspect. Then there's like what I mentioned about how the ocean hates everything we put into it. Like,
Mhm.
you need rugged gear to do this, and that costs. Current economic nonsense doesn't help
Mhm.
with the cost of getting what's already expensive equipment.
Mhm.
But like the pandemic, like, logistics and shipping and all that stuff had a
Mhm.
massive impact on getting gear to maintain.
Ooh.
Um, so there's that aspect of things. We're a small team. We're a
Mhm.
very small team punching well above its weight.
Mhm.
So it means everyone does many jobs. It means that folks are often kind of stretched thin, that you're trying to juggle a lot of different aspects of things.
Mhm.
And you get conflicting priorities sometimes, like you might be head and eyes into bringing in new data or setting up, new gear, but then something breaks. So you got to drop everything and try to fix what best you can. Sometimes there are unexpected technological changes. We had an interruption, from getting, forecasts and weather reports and data. Actually, from the I mentioned before about needing to have a program that reads email to
Mm.
take all that stuff.
Sure.
Well, we get a number of things that way, oddly enough.
Mm.
And then because Microsoft changed what type of like login methods they will allow a program to use,
Hmm.
broke that connection.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, all that we're still getting the emails,
Mhm.
but the programs that were set up to read that email couldn't
Hmm.
anymore. And that took coordinating with the IT department and trying to figure out with them, how do we do this now? Because
Hmm.
the shutdown came and there was no notice, at least from my end.
Yeah.
And so that was a learning experience for everyone. Of how do we reestablish this? Like,
Wow.
a change like that can happen,
Mhm.
and it throws everything into disarray. And so then anything you're working on gets pushed to the back burner because you're
Mhm.
trying to reestablish what was previously working.
Mhm.
We're a small team, again, if someone leaves, they leave with a bunch of knowledge that isn't easily transferred to whoever comes behind them.
Right.
Um, there's that aspect of things. Mother Nature doesn't want to cooperate.
Mm.
So then, that even if you have everything lined up to go, if Mother Nature says no, then you're not deploying a buoy or retrieving one.
Mm.
Um, the logistics alone of like Coast Guard have been great, help us out a lot with deploying and retrieving stuff, but they have their own priorities.
Right.
So we had one instance a number of years ago. We had a buoy in around Corner Brook
Mm.
on the west coast of the island, and Coast Guard was actually on its way to go and help pluck it because a bunch of ice was coming down, and it was like,
Mm.
if that comes in, it's going to be steamrolled, and
Mm.
that's the end of it. So they were on their way out to go and grab it for us to pull it before that happened. Then they got a distress call.
Mm.
So priorities are priorities, right?
Sure.
Machinery can be replaced, people can.
Right.
So obviously they do the right thing and they go help that person out.
Mhm.
That means the ice comes in, absolutely just smuckers that buoy.
Mhm.
From
Mhm.
a distance, it looked okay. But you could talk to Eric and he'd be able to probably show you some pictures of how up close it got. This structure was mangled. He has pictures of one where the top part is just sheared right off.
Jeez. Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
Things can break loose from their moorings. So the buoy could be fine, but the mooring that's holding it to the seafloor and in
Mm.
place can snap. And then it goes on an adventure. We have one of the buoys that we have. Thankfully, it's only been one. The official status of it is lost at sea. It it's out there somewhere. But there was one around Port aux Basques that broke free and miraculously just kind of found its way into a bit of a sheltered piece of harbor and all on its own. And it just kind of hung out no matter like how bad the weather and stuff was.
Mm.
And so there was that. There was one that broke free in Placentia Bay. And we were still transmitting GPS data, so we knew where it was,
Mhm.
and we had arrangements were in place for it to be retrieved, and then it started moving on its own in a direct line.
Oh.
And this ends up in something of a mixed blessing situation where some folks had dragged it to shore.
Oh.
Great, awesome, and so it could be retrieved from there.
Mhm.
And when the crane came out, folks were salvaging the components.
Oh, no.
And the expensive parts were thrown into the wash, like, with the water, and I was like, "Oh, no." And, like, there's a 1-800 number on there, there is, like, a reward if something like that happens where, you'll get paid if you
Mhm.
help us recover it or things like
Sure.
this. So what they took off was worth less than they would have got had they called, and now all the expensive gear has to get replaced.
Oh, no.
So that's a problem.
Jeez.
So like there's all kinds of challenges, things you don't expect.
Wow.
8 inches of ice being on a buoy, you don't
Right.
expect that either.
Sure.
There's all kinds of potential challenges
Mhm.
with all that, and very real ones. Like like I said, folks move on, so knowledge leaves, and you need to rebuild it, and
Mm.
and all that. I don't know. Any thoughts from your own comfort? Like you came to this fairly new. So what have been the challenges that you've experienced or from your end?
Yeah, I was thinking about when the Hollywood Observatory cable just mysteriously went loose, and we couldn't find the observatory for like months. So it took months to coordinate and find it, attach it back, and all of that. So yeah, it's just there are surprises from everywhere, right? Every year, some new,
Mm.
like the ice thing was not expected.
Right.
Definitely could not plan for that, right? And
Sure.
there are also a lot of new projects that come on, right? So even parsing data, right? Because different types of data, different sources, even the extensions that the data come with, because depending on what kind of sensor it is,
Mm.
how it sends you the data. That's also a thing. You might you don't always get data in like CSV, which is, really interesting. So different sensors, different manufacturers have their own. It's weird. It's interesting. So which means that with each manufacturer, you have to figure out how to parse the data into a format that people can read. So it's fun. It's interesting in that way.
Mm.
So challenging.
Sure. No, I bet it's one of the fun things about science sometimes is just the puzzling, and it's like, okay. And
Yeah.
it's fun when it's a puzzle that you can actually solve fairly quickly. Yeah, but then when it's not, it's like, okay. But then it gets to be more gratifying, so that's nice in its own way. So this one's been kind of stewing in my brain for a little bit. So like how, because we're talking, like you mentioned about like people like wanting the addition of like new buoys to different areas, or like new like undersea observatories. Like what go like so like on like your end, like how do you decide like, oh, this place should get one, but we can't do that over here?
Um, I'm not usually involved in deciding of those
Mm,
kinds of things.
sure.
So there's other folks you could probably talk to answer that question
Sure.
better. But sometimes it does come through consultation with like different clients and things like this. Like it might start out with we want a buoy in the bay. So then it's a matter of okay, where should it go?
Mm,
And that requires consultation with the community and the people who use those waters. Like putting something there, you're being a guest in someone else's home, basically. So you want to
mm,
be a good guest.
right.
And so, like, you can't just throw it willy-nilly anywhere at all. Like the undersea geography where the mooring needs to sit might not be favorable for where you want to put it.
Mm,
You might be in the way of someone's fishing grounds or a major transit route or
mm,
things like this. So there's an aspect of marine spatial planning that kind of goes into that.
mm,
So there's a lot of consultation that happens in that
mm.
aspect of things. And like
Gotcha.
you have to have that relationship with the folks in the area. You can't just waltz on in, drop some kit, and expect it to go well. Because, like no one likes to feel that they're being spied on, type
Mhm,
of thing. And that's where some of that can kind of come from. But
mhm,
again, like, you work with the community and let them know that, no, though, here's what we're planning on doing. Here's what this is for. And here's how it can benefit you.
Mm.
Where's a good place to put this, right? It's like,
Right.
if we put it here, is this a problem? And Smart Bay and SmartAtlantic have done a good job of establishing that kind of relationship with the communities that we work with, and as a result, folks see value in it and they want it there, rather
Sure.
than get it out of my water. It's like, when can we have one? That's
Mhm.
that's the side of things you want to be on. So that's that's kind of how that bit, I guess, kind of goes in broad strokes. Community engagement. You need the
Yeah.
buy-in. You can't just force it.
No,
It doesn't
absolutely.
work.
Yeah. I think, like, in, like, the conversations that I've had, like, with Maria about NATO Diana and then with y'all about Smart Atlantic, Smart Bay, is, like, I'm definitely feeling, like, a lot of kind of connections to the place that we find ourselves in and kind of, like, how, like, those almost values are reflected in the work that we do, like, with the community engagement, like, close-knit ties here and how it's like it's the weirdest niche community that I've ever found myself in. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon with everyone that I know. Um, but it's, like, really interesting that y'all talk about community engagement in that way when I don't think it's as important in a lot of other places, but I think that's a thing that's very pervasive around this area, and I think that's really interesting.
There is a unique cultural aspect to that. Um, there's two ways you can go about it, right?
Mhm,
One way is, you make those relationships, because those are the folks that you need to work with,
mhm,
and hopefully depend on.
sure.
And it's really interesting to be part of a project like this. I've been with this program since it started. It's the proudest thing I've worked on.
Mm,
So it is my baby in many
sure.
ways. But you can work on a thing for a long time,
Mm,
but it's something else when you work on a thing and then other people find it valuable. You
mm,
feel like you're doing something worthwhile.
sure.
Um, and Climate change is a big concern for me. I've been in something of a state of climate panic for a little over 20 years,
Mm,
in my own way. And while I'm not going to be the person to solve it, this is this is probably the best application of the skills I have to helping further understand the situation
mm,
the ocean's in, and that's the first step in trying to mitigate the impact that we're having on it. So
sure.
for me, for my own little space,
Mhm.
that's kind of the bit on that.
I love to hear that because, like, as, like, a budding scientist, it's, like, really kind of, like, refreshing to hear, and so, like, very just kinda like a it feels very future gratifying, if that makes sense. And it's like, okay. So, like, I'm really happy for you that you found that niche for yourself and, like, found that way to apply yourself to a problem that you see in the world and how of course, like you said, can't solve it, but you can definitely, like, work around it and help other people navigate the world.
Help trying to push the needle in the right direction.
Yeah,
That's all we can do, right? So
totally. What other things do you want people to know about Smart Atlantic that, you don't necessarily get to address, or that hasn't come up so far?
there's always a long list of things that the website isn't doing that I want it to do,
Mm,
and to build it out. It's 20th anniversary, so we want to try to put a push on expanding what we're doing, and the quality of that. So there's talk of doing redesign and upkeep of the website to kind of give it a refresh and expand its capabilities. The Reef Ball project I mentioned
mhm,
has an eye towards having its data served through SmartAtlantic, so we keep expanding. Um, there's other projects that want to avail of us, and use it as a platform to get their data out and to share it with folks. There's other data sources that we could be bringing in to help kind of supplement what we've already got,
mhm,
so that it can always be more. I found out recently that Coast Guard actually has a number of live, like webcams that
mm.
are near ports and such like this. Some of them close to where we have stations. I'm like, well, do I want to get those in? So
Sure.
yeah, like to continue adding and expanding on what's there, build it out to. I want to put in systems there to kind of flag when a sensor is starting to go squirrely, and it's like giving insane readings for it to flag that like this might not reflect what's going on. To have better data quality control processes in place for the real time data aspect. Like it's always been with a focus towards the operational, to showing folks what's happening now and what's happened recently. And so the focus has been on getting the data out as fast as possible. But there's been a lot of advances in work on real-time quality control. So I want to build that in so that when something goes squirrely, folks can see that, okay, maybe this isn't quite right. To not give a false impression of what the situation, might be. But, folks who avail this on a regular basis kind of understand where the norms are, and they can kind of tell when, okay, conditions aren't safe. I'm not going to go out and the boat today. Or looks like it's a great day and it's been good for a while. Have at. The AI project that Comfort and ISA are working on, I want to get that fed into the observatory camera in a live, or at least a delayed sense, so that as new observations are made in near real time, that you can kind of see like when stuff happened on the camera, because like you can go through and just stumble your way through, and you do get to discover stuff and all that, but it's nice when you can know when a thing happened and be able to go jump straight to it and see all that. Like to bring in all those observatories. There's been a project kind of on the back burner for a while to build, as Comfort mentioned, like dashboards and such, like for a region. Currently, you go in and it's a very much station by station basis. So you see what this buoy is doing or what this station is doing, and this here. A dashboard would give a more comprehensive view of, say, of all the stations in that area. Like, what is the temperature across all of them? What are all these things look like in concert, rather than one at a time.
Sure.
And I know in Halifax there's a demand for that. I imagine it would be the same for, say, St. John's, Central Bay, and Fortune Bay, and anywhere else that we've got a number of assets. It'd be good here for Holyrood because we have a buoy further out. We've got the observatory kind of in the middle, and there's a station right here on the wharf. So it'd be good to show all that. And the 20th anniversary seems like a good push to get some of those things across the finish line.
Yay. Okay, one last question for y'all. I guess we're in the 20th right now, but like going forward, like into the future, maybe like 10 years beyond, like what visions or like desires do you see or like wish of Smart Atlantic, and like where do you like hope it could develop?
A buoy in every bay. That'd be awesome. I would love to get a more comprehensive look around the entire island and Labrador and such, and tie it in together to a better view all around of all the different data sources that are there, to give folks a better impression of what's around them. I've been in conversation with the Ocean Tracking Network, and they have acoustic receivers, a loan program for them. And so this would pick up like tagged animals and stuff like this. I want to get those receivers on the buoys and stations so that we can know when stuff's in around. And early conversations looks like the tech should work out. Like a lot of things kind of line up already. Like we might be able to plug and play this, but you need to take stuff out of the water. You need to plug it all in. You need to see if it works and then work out the problems. But there's no red flags to say like, this is crazy. Like, no, this could totally work. And I'd love to get some of those there. They have a couple different versions. One you can wire in so it's more constant. So that'd be good for the buoys. And there's maybe potentially ones we can even wire up on the observatory out in the bay. More observatories. Love that. I'd love to help bring in the glider programs and such. It'd be great to have NL Newfoundland ferries kitted out the way BC ferries are, where they have instrumentation on them that's measuring the ocean and such as they're going along their routes. We've met recently. We had a presentation Comfort and I attended for the if I get this right, the Fishing Vessel Ocean Observation Network, FVON. This is an international effort that uses fishing vessels and their gear as kind of vessels of opportunity to collect ocean data. And it fills in a very interesting gap in like the near shore, right? Like you have buoys and things that are offshore and vessels and like gliders and, the Argo floats that are out there all collecting data, but it's further offshore. Inshore, there's less collection of information.
Sure.
But fishers go these routes all the time. They're dropping gear in these places. They're uniquely suited to being able to kind of help collect that data. A number of years ago, we had a program called the Fisher's Logbook that attempted to kind of do something like this, but it was ahead of its time because when push came to shove, fisher folk are out there to fish, not collect scientific data. So the project was a good idea. The tech was good for its day, but there were complications in actually deploying it in a consistent, meaningful way. It got in the way of them doing the thing that they were out there to do.
Sure.
FVON is interesting because we're many years on, and now the tech's got to a point where it's kind of hands off. Once it's installed on their gear, they throw the gear over, it collects data, they haul their gear in, and there's a wireless automated box on the boat that receives the data, sends it along, and anonymizes it so that you can't track back to whose boat that was, things like this. But the data is, collected and quality controlled and then made available and can be filled in. And then long term, that has benefits for all kinds of folks. Folks that you're fishing, that you have a better idea of what the temperatures are, and if you know your species, then you probably know what temperatures they like. And if this area is normally hot or colder than they like, then you probably know this is not a good spot, or this spot is changing, because we know the ocean is changing.
Right.
It helps fill in that gap. It might help indirectly map out a place. This bay, maybe it's good for aquaculture, maybe it's not. But you have that information. It might warn ahead of, like, say, a harmful algal bloom that's like sucked all the oxygen out of the water, and that you have a massive die-off, which which happens.
Sure.
If you have that real-time data coming in and you're monitoring, I think oxygen and temperature is one of the initial ones they're looking at. Like, you potentially have an ability to have a heads up or some knowledge about why a thing happened. Even if you can't prevent it, you might have some insight into how that happened.
Sure.
So there's potential there for fishers to help get information about their own environment, and that has scientific and applications for climate and aquaculture and everything as well. So I'd love to get all this stuff in. I want all the things. There's like models that Environment Canada makes that help to do prediction of the ocean and waves and storm surge and all that stuff. I'd love to get that stuff in there too. What are the currents doing and waves? There's a lot there's a lot of places I want this to go. I don't see the future as a dim one. I see it as it can only expand and get bigger and better. And I want to see that happen. And whether I'm the one driving it or comfort takes over and I'm put out to pasture, that's fine. I want to see this keep on rolling because it does a lot of good. Folks depend on it. Folks appreciate it. And like I said, when it came to, say, the partnership with NEGL in Labrador, we initially did it because, we reached out. It was a natural partnership to bring the data in, to make it more accessible to folks. I didn't know they would really be using it in their day-to-day lives and making calls about how to shut down schools. That's an impact on folks in the day-to-day. Didn't know we were filling that gap. In many ways, we're accidental infrastructure. Because, like I said, you don't have a tanker not wanting to leave port if they don't trust the data they're getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That's a massive vessel that, has an experienced crew. They know what's fit to eat. And there is value in this, and it's demonstrated. Despite having the challenges and frustrations about funding and support, we have support from the populace, and that's the big one. For the folks that have the money for them to wake up to maybe invest in this. This is good for everybody.
Sure.
That's a harder discussion to have with folks, but it's a real one. So. For your own end comfort, is there anything that you see?
Definitely the talk of different types of data types, right? So because we're collecting all sorts of data, so especially now satellite data, bathymetry data, just using the opportunity that the Smart Atlantic has collecting all this data to be able to draw a picture, of the future, of what's currently happening, of, even noticing what it was before and what is currently happening now, just parsing all this data together to have like a 3D picture of what our future would look like would be really good.
I'm really, really glad I got to talk to y'all today. So thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. And for those of y'all that are listening, thank you so much for sticking around, listening for this long, and catch us out on our socials. And please reach out to us at wavecast@mi.mun.ca, and we'd be happy to chat with y'all. That's it, y'all. Stay wavy, Franz.